Hello everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Recent Things. Today we are going to do a Valentine's Day mashup. And what do I mean by that? I'm going to take some of my favorite heart-shaped wreath DIYs and a little topiary DIY featuring love, Valentine's Day. Why don't I just get started and I'll show you what I made. We have the heart-shaped wreath form from the Dollar Tree, along with this burlap with lace overlay ribbon. It's wired ribbon, and I'm going to be using that for our first DIY wreath today. And I'm going to be using 4 rolls of that, along with my regular crafting utensils to create this project. I'm first starting out just unraveling our burlap ribbon a little bit, placing a little hot glue on the end, and then folding it into itself. And then I'm just going to start wrapping it right around our wreath frame. I am taking my time doing this. I want it to be nicely wrapped around because it will be visible. So with my left hand, I'm just guiding it, and then with my right, I'm just laying it down. When I come to the point at the very end, I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue down. I'm going to fiddle around with it just to make sure I get that point nicely covered and everything falls into place. And of course, again, with my last piece, I'm just going to add a little more hot glue down on the other side, fold that over into it as well. And then that'll create that little V right at the bottom. I have to fold in and glue some of the ribbon, but that's okay. I've got the V shape right at the very end, so I'm happy with that. You can see right here, I'm going to do it on the other side as well, and that's going to create that beautiful V right at the bottom. And with the excess on my first ribbon, I'm just going to hot glue that right down on top of that other ribbon, hold that into place a little bit, and then I'm going to add some more hot glue down and add my second roll right into that hot glue. And then I'm just going to start rolling it and wrapping it all the way around until I have covered that entire wreath frame with this beautiful burlap and lace overlay fabric. And right when I come to the end, I'm just going to cut off the excess. And I'm kind of going to do the same. I'm going to fold it over, but first I'm going to put some hot glue on that wire, fold it in on itself, and that'll create that other V shape right at the top so we don't lose that shape of the heart. Once that glue is all dried and everything's in place, I have my beautiful base wreath all ready to go and decorate. And how am I decorating it today? I'm going to cut 18-inch strips of that burlap with the lace overlay, and I'm going to be cutting 7 of these pieces. So that's 7 pieces cut at 18 inches, and this is going to create our little bow. And before I do that, I am going to fold the pieces in half, cut on an angle, and create dovetails on one end of each of those 7 pieces. Once that's done, I've got a dovetail end and I've got a straight cut end, and I'm always going to make sure that dovetail end is at the right hand side, and that's going to create our tail. Then I'm just going to fold over that other piece just a little bit over halfway, and then you'll see it's creating a loop at one end and a tail at the other end. We'll just squish it right in the middle there, hold that in place. There's our tail, there's our loop, and with my piece fingers on the other hand, I'm just going to hold our first bow in place, and then I'm going to continue doing the same method over and over again, folding it over a little bit. Then I'm just going to squish it right in the middle and place it right in between my piece fingers, and that's going to create our bundle bow for this beautiful wreath. And here we go. I'm going to attach it all together with this pipe cleaner. I'm just going to fold it in half, place it right where my fingers are, transfer it over to my right hand while my left hand twists that pipe cleaner nice and tight so that ribbon doesn't go anywhere. Then with the tails at the bottom, I'm just going to make sure that the good side is facing up, and I'm just going to lay that all flat, and then I'm going to adjust my bow a little bit, but you can kind of see where we're going with this bow, and it's got our 7 loops, and it's all ready to be attached to our wreath. Here is our wreath, and I'm going to take those stems from my pipe cleaner, separate them, and then I'm just going to flip them right onto the wreath frame. with one end going through the middle and the other end going through the edge. And then once I find where my placement is going to be, I twist it nice and tight, cut off the excess, and there we have our bow attached to our wreath. I'm just going to spend some time fluffing up those tails and fluffing up those loops, getting my bow absolutely perfectly beautiful and fluffy. And there we have our first finished lace and burlap wreath. Look at this. I just love how this turned out. It's very simple, very classic. And of course, we have our heart shape to celebrate Valentine's with that large bow. Our first wreath of our video. Again, the star of the show today is that heart-shaped wreath frame. I'm using mesh tube in 3 different colors. Now these come in 12-yard lengths. And for these, I did 4 of the pink, 4 of the white, and 4 of the red for today's crafts, as well as some white pipe cleaners and my regular crafting utensils. I am starting off with my pipe cleaners. Now these are just regular length pipe cleaners. I cut in half. I have my bundles of the mesh tubing. I'm going to grab my ruler and my scissors. And then for each one of the tubing, I'm going to find the ends and just lay them together, bundle them together. And then I'm going to come in about an inch, maybe an inch and a half off the edge. And I'm going to measure out 6 inches for our loops. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently tug it. Now, if you pull it really, really tight, it's going to bounce back and it's going to be shorter than what you thought or what you wanted to measure. So I'm going to measure out 6 inches, pinch it, and then I'm going to bring that towards my left hand. So I've created 3 loops and I'm going to create 3 more loops. So I'm going to pull it out loosely, bunch it up together, bring it towards my fingers again, and that's going to create another 3 loops. Now, the remaining ones are the ones we're going to cut. We're not going to cut the loops, cut the ones that are attached to our bundles. Grab that pipe cleaner that we cut in half, place it right in the center, making sure all our tubes are right there. And then what I'm going to do is simply just twist it a couple of times to make sure it's nice and secure. And we've got our first bundle all done. Again, we're going to grab those ends together, come in at about 1.5 inches or 1 inch, measure out the 6 inches, pinch it together, bring it to our fingers. Then we're going to measure out 6 inches again, loop it, and then we're going to cut those ends. Grab that pipe cleaner, fold it in half, twist it in the center. Bundle number 2 of 375 million done. I'm going to keep creating these bundles. Like I said, I did all of the 4 packages of each for my bundles. I know it's a lot, but you know what? Put on your favorite show, watch your favorite movie, then you've created all these beautiful bundles. Here is the first section all done. I just wanted to show you firsthand what it looks like once it's all done. Now, I have done a little bit of a zigzag pattern to attach these on the wreath frame. So I'm using the outside and middle wire and outside wire. So again, we're doing that crisscross pattern using the middle, inside, middle, and outside. So I've already done that one section right there. And in that one section, I have 14 of these bundles. So what I'm going to do, this is the good side facing up. I'm going to have the good side facing down, grab my bundle, have those pipe cleaners facing up, separate them a little bit, and then I'm going to work on the 2 outside wires. So that's that middle wire and the outside wire, wrapping the pipe cleaner around both, twisting it right in the center a couple of times, folding down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push that bundle towards the rest of my bundles. Now I've done the outside, I'm going to do the inside, the same method. This time I'm just using those 2 inside wires, wrapping that pipe cleaner around, twisting it, and then we're just going to push that right together with the rest of our bundles. And I'm going to keep doing that process over and over again. I mentioned earlier I did 14 bundles per section, and that's what I'm doing for each of those larger sections. So we're attaching 14 bundles using that zigzag pattern, and that's going to fill it up ever so nicely. You can see here we have another section all done, and look at that. It's just full of color, and I love it. Now, those little sections that I'm pointing out right now, I'm going to do 7 bundles in each of those sections as opposed to the larger ones where we're doing 14 bundles. So here I am. I didn't really have a plan of how I was going to attack these smaller sections, so I just started adding the bundles until it was nice and full. And then once that's all done, you can see there that little section is all done, and we're ready to complete those last 2 sections by adding those bundles. Once that's all done, we have to hang our wreath, so I'm going to grab some more ribbon that I had laying around, and I'm just attaching it right where that cross wire is and where the outside wire is. And all I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to tie a double knot here, and then I'm going to tie a double knot on the other side, and we have our hanger all ready for this wreath. So you can hang it on the hook of your door. I use a door wreath hanger. So there you go. I'm just going to hang that on there. And I was just kind of taking a look at this, and I'm just like trying to decide if I like it. The shape was kind of lost of the heart. It looks more like a teardrop shape, and I really wanted something more on there. So I had this little glittery heart laying around. I think I purchased it last year at the Dollar Tree, and I thought, you know what? I think that's going to be a perfect little addition. So I'm going to take the tag off, add some hot glue right at the end, and then I'm just going to push that down, hold it in place for a little bit until that glue dries to make sure it stays in place, and voila, here we go. That was the finishing touch that it totally needed for me. I wanted that glitter. I wanted that heart shape really defined, and of course look at all that white, pink, and red tubing. I just loved working with it. I had such a fun time doing it, and look how it looks on my door. Just fantastic. Red, pink, and white. And there is the door hanger I'm talking about to hang my wreath on that door as well. For our third and final one, again, we're using that heart-shaped wreath form. This time I'm using 6-inch Deco mesh in the color of red, and I'm using 2 packages, along with these little hearts and these little picks that are all glittery. And I'm going to be using these beaded necklaces, but I'm only going to be using the red beaded necklace for this. I'm going to use 2 of those in total. And these little heart-shaped containers, they're clear. And I'm going to be using glitter glue for the first time today as well, along with my regular crafting utensils. First, I am going to open up those containers, and I'm just going to take off that little plastic loop that's right at the top, and then I'm going to dump in a whole bunch of this glitter glue. Now, I love the shape and I love the size of the hearts here, but I wanted more sparkle, so I thought if I just did a layer on the inside of the glitter glue, we'll get a nice big glittery heart. And I ended up using a ton of this glitter to get the idea, or to get the way I wanted it to look, being all glittery, etc., etc. And once I've used my paintbrush to scatter it all around, I'm going to let that dry for a little bit before I continue. And to start off with our wreath frame, I'm taking my Deco mesh, and this time I'm actually just going to wrap my Deco mesh around the wreath frame. So all of you new wreath makers out there, this is a great idea to kind of dive into Deco mesh or wreath making. Actually, all of these ideas today for all of these heart-shaped wreath forms are perfect for beginner wreath makers, where you're not using a lot of mesh, not doing a lot of cuts. You just wrap it around and you see the final result here before I add all of my little embellishments. So I'm just opening up all of my packages. I like to have everything around me, and I'm cutting the ends off of those picks. I just want the hearts. I don't need the little sticks. And I'm going to start with adding a layer of those pink hearts. Our background is red, so if I put the red hearts right on top, it's going to hide a little bit. It's going to camouflage itself. So I thought if I did a layer of the pink hearts first, and then I start adding a layer of the red on top of the pink, the red's going to pop a little bit more than if I just put those red hearts right on that red Deco mesh. And you can see here, I'm just building it up. I'm using the larger hearts first, and then I'm going to use these smaller hearts to add on some more depth and some more interest, and add it like a little cluster that's coming apart or spreading all over our wreath. But I'm not covering all the deco mesh because I do want to see a little bit of it, so I cover pretty much the left-hand side. And with my beads, what I'm going to do is add a little line of hot glue just right on the edge there, and then I'm going to add those beads right in the hot glue right around the very edge, creating more interest and more texture, more color, and of course more glitter with those beads, more shininess with those beads. And we all love the glitter and all love the shininess on our wreaths. We like our wreaths to pop and stand out. Once I come to the end, I'm just going to cut off the excess, and I'm just going to make sure it's all nice and level. And then once the outside is all done, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the inside of my wreath. So I just lay down a line of hot glue, and then I'm just going to add those beads into the hot glue there and finish that inner corner, or that inside I should say. Fill it up with those beads again, and I'm almost done. And the final result, look at how this just adds a little bit of panache to our wreath. And once my heart is all dry with all the glitter on the inside, I'm going to take a little bead, a little strain of beads I should say, maybe there's about 4 or 5 beads on there, and that's going to be attached right to the center. So I attach the bead to the heart itself, position it, add a little more hot glue right into the center where I want it, and then I'm going to attach the other end of that bead into the hot glue so that little heart hangs right there in the center. I'm going to let that dry for a bit before I bother it and move it around. But at the same time, I thought I wanted to add some beads onto the actual heart where the deco mesh is, just to kind of tie everything together. So I cut the little beads, and then I'm going to add little dollops of hot glue just here and there, not too many. I think in total I did about 7 of them. And then I'm just going to take those beads and put that right into the hot glue, just adding a little touch of those beads so we tie the whole project together. And speaking of the project, here is our final result, our beautiful deco mesh wreath that we wrapped instead of doing a curly method or a bubble method, along with that big beautiful glittery heart right in the center. And we can't forget our pink and red glittery hearts all around the outside as well. That beautiful cluster coming around with those little individual beads we cut and placed on our wreath. We're starting off with our famous heart wreath frame and some faux pearls. I just picked up a couple of bags of these. Now, just a little hint, I picked up 2 different sizes by accident. Now, I found a little solve for this towards the end, but just be careful when you're picking them up. Some florals that I got here from Dollarama and the Dollar Tree. They're just kind of pink and white roses. Some spray paint from the Home Depot. This is white. And of course, my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go outside in my garage and I'm just going to spray paint that heart-shaped wreath frame white. I did the front and I also did the back side in the white. This is optional. You don't have to do it. I just wanted to do that. And then I'm just going to take apart my roses, and then I'm just going to click off that little nub right at the end. I should say clip off, not click off. And then I'm just going to do a dry run to see how I want to arrange the flowers. And what I'm going to do is I ended up putting some natural burlap. This is just a ribbon roll that I got from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to glue that down and wrap it around just in the area where I'm going to put the flowers. Originally, I was just going to glue them right on the wire frame, and I thought the burlap would be a little bit better and a lot more surface area. So I'm just gluing that down, and then I'm just going to take my florals. I'm going to start with the larger ones. I had 2 different sizes. I'm going to place those down. There's 4 of them. And then once I place all 4 of those larger roses, I'm going to place the other ones down as well. And these are just artificial roses. You can pick them up at any local craft store, dollar store, or whatever. And I'm going to make sure that I cover the entire burlap because I don't really want that shown. And once it's all attached, I take a look at it. I'm like, yep, I'm happy with that. So we're going to move on to adding those pearls. Like I said before, I accidentally picked up two different sizes. Now the size difference wasn't too bad. One pack of the 60 is a little bit smaller than the pack of the 40. But what I decided to do was I'm just going to use the larger ones, which is the pack of 40, lay some glue down right on that wire frame and add those beads as I go. And I'm going to do that close to the flowers. I'm going to do that on this side that I'm doing right now and on the opposite side as well. And then I'll move on to the smaller ones to finish it all off. So here I am just adding a little bit of hot glue to the wire frame, adding those beads on there. It was a little bit of a lengthy process, I'm not gonna lie. But once you see the outcome, it's amazing. I just loved it. And here I am placing that same size, so the larger pearls on the opposite side of those florals. You can kind of see everything coming together. And I did add these smaller beads onto those cross wires as well. Here is our final result with all the pearls attached. And to hang this, all I'm going to do is I just had a pink colored ribbon laying around. I can't remember where I got it from. And I'm just going to hang it on an angle. So just adding that ribbon on there, tying a knot, and then you can just hang that right on your door. But there it is. I did a little bit of a darker background so you can see those pearls just shining. I absolutely love how this turned out. Like I said, a little bit of a tedious work, but I loved it in the end. Here it is hanging on my door, and well, there you go. There's my finger. Again, we have our heart-shaped wreath for our second wreath, and I found this black and white checkered flannel fabric. This is the Crafter Square fabric from the Dollar Tree. I just love it. I knew I had to do something with it. And of course, I have 3 bunches of the artificial rose picks and my regular crafting utensils to create this project. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to unravel the black and white checkered fabric. I want to see what it looks like all laid out and kind of plan what I'm going to do with this. And what I decided to do was cut it into strips. Now, I didn't really measure when I first started cutting, but I'm going to bring my ruler over, and it's about 3-inch wide. So I'm going to be doing 3-inch wide strips, and I cut a total of 2 of those fabric squares to create this wreath. So once I finish with all of my cuts, I'm going to bring my first little strip, grab some hot glue, place it right at the end, fold the fabric over into itself, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap that fabric around, just creating a beautiful black and white checkered fabric wreath. And I'm doing this over and over again. And again, when I'm coming to that V shape right at the very bottom, I'm going to add some hot glue at the bottom of that V shape, and I'm going to fold over the fabric onto the hot glue, and that's going to create that V shape right at the bottom. And it's not going to cover it up or make it wonky looking. If you use the hot glue, it'll come out really nice, and then that fabric's not going to move. And then of course I'm just fixing it up a little bit, making sure I do have that nice point. And then I'm just going to continue on wrapping those strips and gluing them down all around that wire frame. And once I come right to the end, I'm just going to wrap around my last piece of that fabric, cut off the excess, and again, lay some hot glue down to make sure that's not going to go anywhere. And once we flip it over, we have our base all ready to add those beautiful roses. Look at that fabric. I love it. And here are those roses. All I'm doing is I'm separating the roses and the leaves from the picks, and then I'm just going to cut that little nubby green piece off the very end. I want the roses to lay a little bit flat, so cutting those off will let the roses lay nice and flat onto that fabric. Once that's all done, I'm just going to start hot gluing my roses down. I want them over on the left-hand side. I don't want it to cover the entire wreath frame, especially with that black and white fabric. I really want that black and white fabric to come through. And a little tidbit, don't crowd your roses too much. Let them breathe a little bit. I still want to cover the black and white fabric, but then you're going to go through so many roses if you squish them really, really tight. So I'm just making sure they're nice and close together, not too tight, and it fills up the area that I want it to fill up. And I pick it up, take a look at it, and I'm happy with that placement. So now I'm going to start adding the leaves. And I'm adding 3 sections of those leaves at the bottom, and then I'm going to add 3 sections at the top as well. And then once I finish adding those leaves at the top, I'm just going to take a look at it once again. It's always a good idea to kind of pick up your wreath or stand back from your wreath just to get a different angle, just to see what's going on and if you're happy with the placement. And then I just decide to add some of that green color right in the center there. And then placing those little blup, blup, blup. I got tongue-tied there. I just placed the leaves on with my hot glue gun, and I think that's the perfect amount right there. No need to add any more roses or any more leaves. I'm so happy with how this black and white flannel fabric looks wrapped around that wire wreath frame, and then of course those red roses, which screams of Valentine's, for our second DIY wreath. Again, the star of the show is that heart-shaped wreath frame. I am using the Crafter's Square felt roll in flesh and in gray color. Now, I had 4 colors of the flesh and 4 colors of the gray. I ended up using 3 of the gray and 4 of the flesh color. I have some gray ribbon, those fur pearl beads as well, the faux pearl beads as well, and then we have my regular crafting utensils to create this project. I'm starting off just by unrolling my first roll of the felt. I'm going to be using a lid off of a candle for a little template. Now this is just over 4 inches wide. You can create your own template with cardboard or paper if you want. And then I'm just going to trace out my template all across the entire full roll of that felt. Once that's all traced, I'm going to cut out my templates and my little circles, and I'm going to cut on the inside of the black line that I created so the black won't show through. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold each circle in half, cut it right down the center, and I'm going to do that for about 10 to 12 pieces, or circles I should say. To start making our rows, I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue right at the very end, fold it over, and then I'm just going to roll that whole roll up. And at the very end, add a little more hot glue to close off that roll and make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I'm going to grab my second piece of half moon felt. I'm going to add a bead or a line of glue right at the bottom there, and then I'm going to roll it around that first piece we just did. And I'm going to make sure the top is just a little bit looser with each one, and with each addition of these half circles, I'm going to add it a little bit further up. So I'm not lining up the bottom of every single roll perfectly, so I'm kind of putting that glue down, coming up a little bit, and then I'm just loosely placing it around. So you can kind of see we're creating that little rose effect. You want the middle to be nice and tight, so you have the center of the rose, and then the petals to be kind of looser as you keep going and attaching. You can kind of see here my rose is forming, and I'm just so happy with it. Of course, I'm going to make more roses in the gray and more in this flesh color felt as well. But here is our first little rose all ready for our wreath. Originally, I was going to wrap the wireframe in the gray ribbon, but I decided I'm just going to wrap it around with this felt. So here's where the 4th piece of felt comes in. I'm going to fold it in half, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut long strips with it. I didn't measure it at all. I just kind of eyeballed it, and I just cut the strips out, and these are the strips that I'm going to use to wrap my wireframe in. Again, this creates a little more surface area for you to glue those roses down. I mean, you can totally just glue them right on the wire frame if you want, but this just adds a little more surface area for you to glue those roses. And all I'm doing for this felt is I'm taking the strips, gluing them down at the beginning and at the center, gluing down the next strip on top of that, and just wrapping it around the entire wreath frame. When you come to those pointed edges, I like to add a little bit of hot glue, then continue my wrapping and making sure that those little pointed edges are covered as well. So again, I'm just continuing gluing these down, wrapping it, cutting off the excess. We're going to add a little more hot glue, and then I'm going to add my next piece and continue on until we have our final wrapped wreath base all ready for the roses. Let's bring those roses in now. You can see I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the gray, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 of the flesh colored ones. And again, it's the 3 rolls each of the felt to make the roses and 1 roll to make the base, to wrap the base wreath. So I'm going to continue with my roses here, and I'm doing kind of offset. So I'm going to do a gray, flesh color, etc., etc. And I ended up actually having a couple of roses left over after I was done. My whole thought process is that I didn't want to squish them together. I wanted them to kind of be fluffy, and of course, here we go. Dave's recent things we have to fluff, so I'm fluffing up the roses, but I wanted those roses to be nice and full and seen instead of squished together. So here we are, and I'm looking at it and I decide, you know what, this is really, really pretty. I am gonna add those pearls right in the center, because I was thinking for a bit that I wasn't going to, but I decided in the end that I am going to. I'm gonna add a little hot glue in the center, place those pearls there, and I just love how it turned out. To hang it, I'm taking that gray ribbon I showed you right at the beginning. I'm going to cut off a piece, and then I'm just going to flip it over on the back side, add some hot glue down to place my ribbon on, and then I just cut a couple of pieces of extra felt into little rectangles to kind of cover and to actually help hang it as well, make sure it's nice and secure. And we have our hanger all ready for our door. And look at our beautiful roses that we handmade. I just love it. I had so much fun making these roses, and the 2 colors together, very non-traditional, kind of a modern take on the normal colors for Halloween, or not for Halloween, for Valentine's Day, if you will. Today I'm going to be using a heart-shaped styrofoam piece along with some red felt pieces. I found these red and pink glittery hearts along with this Valentine's Day themed box with a lid. I have some rocks in a bag that I'm going to be used as a weight, and these Valentine's Day themed pencils, some 5/8" ribbon. This is in kind of a pink color and red, along with our little friend, the gnome here, and my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that styrofoam heart, my glue gun, and the felt, and then I'm just going to wrap the felt all the way around, covering the entire heart shape. And I'm going to try my best to still have that heart shape after I wrapped everything around. So I'm just going to press it down and glue it down as close as I can. And now I'm just adding that second piece on there as well, covering up the entire styrofoam heart. Now I'm not being 100% perfect on this. Here's the end result. I am going to cover it so I'm not too worried. Then I'm just going to take that X-Acto knife right at the base of that heart, cut a little X in there, and then I'm just going to decide which pencil I'm going to use, which is this pink and red heart one. I'm going to place it right at the bottom there, stuffing it in there. Then I'm going to add some hot glue right at the very end, stick it right back in that hole, and just make sure that it's centered, let it dry. Then is the fun part. I'm going to add all of this glittery hearts right onto that large heart. Now I will say this, I ended up doing a little bit of a different procedure than I am now. Right now I'm just picking one up, putting glue on it, and you can see here I decided just to put a little bit of hot glue down and then stick some more on there, and that ended up going a lot faster and a lot quicker for me, and a better procedure really in the end. But here is our final result of that heart glittered shape heart that we've got here. I loved how sparkly this was. So much glitter, but I loved it. Now I'm just going to take the lid of the box, add some hot glue, and then place the base of the box right in there just to add a little more interest and a couple of different patterns on there. And I had this half heart or half circle styrofoam piece as well. I'm going to place that right at the bottom of the pencil. You can see a little bit earlier I took off the eraser and that metal piece. And now I'm just going to place that pencil right in the center of that styrofoam half circle. and add a little bit of hot glue on there. This is how I'm going to have it stand right in the center of my box. So filling that hole with the hot glue, then I'm going to place the pencil and my heart right back in there, and I'm going to hold that for a while, adding some more glue to make sure it's nice and secure and that doesn't go anywhere once it's all dried. So we're just going to hold it for a bit. Once it's all dried, I'm actually going to decorate my box a little bit more. This looks like white on camera, but it's a really light pink ribbon, and I'm going to cut a piece that goes around the box, and then I'm going to create a little bowl just by folding it over itself, cutting that down. Then I'm going to create some tails. Again, I'm not really measuring anything, and I'm going to cut a little piece for the center of our bow. To attach it all together, I'm just going to use a very small piece of pipe cleaner. This is my bow right now, and I'm just going to fold it in half, twist that pipe cleaner nice and tight. I'm going to cut off the excess as well. Once that's all done, I'm going to take that very small piece, fold it in half, and then I'm just going to make sure my bow is nice and fluffy and that little piece is right in the middle. Add some hot glue on there, fold it over. Once it's nice and secured, I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to cut off the excess, and we have our little bow all created, all ready to attach to our box to add a little bit more pizzazz to it, if you will. I always love a little bit more. And then I'm just going to hot glue that little piece of ribbon that I cut before all the way around my box. Again, this is just to add a little more je ne sais quoi to our box. Instead of just the hearts and everything, we've got the box topper, which is at the bottom, and now we're going to add on our tail of our ribbons with hot glue, add a little bit more hot glue right in the center there, and then add that ribbon on right there on top. Of course, it's Dave's recent things. We have to fluff the bow, even though it's a very small bow. And I'm just going to cut those tails right on an angle, and we have our bow already, almost like it's a little gift box. Then I'm going to add those rocks right at the bottom. I'm not going to take them out of the bag because I'm going to reuse these again probably. A lot of my topiaries I do take apart after a couple of years and make new ones or refresh them or whatever. So I don't necessarily take the rocks out. And then I'm going to hot glue that base right on top of the rocks. Add that right in there. Push it down, make sure it's nice and dry. Then I'm just going to take a roll of red felt and I'm going to place that right on top of the styrofoam and the rocks just to cover that all so we don't see any of that inside. And of course we have our little gnome friend holding up his Valentine's Day letter ready for us, and we're just going to place him right at the front there, front and center, so he can show off his love letter to his Valentine. And of course, what's Valentine's Day without chocolates? These are just the Dollar Tree chocolates. These are the fudge ones. They're actually my favorite ones from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to fill those in right at the base of our little topiary. And here is our little Valentine's Day topiary in all of its glory, with that bow, with our little gnome friend, those chocolates, and of course the star of the show is this big glittery heart full of hearts ready to display, and it's in full display right here on my kitchen counter. I'm just loving the glittery, I'm loving the little gnome, and I love how that little bow turned out on our little gift box as well. Thank you so much for joining me today on my Valentine's Day mashup of my previous wreaths. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified whenever I upload a new project. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye for now.